Ooh, you're damn right, everybody. It's the HooperCast. Hello, it's Connor and Amelia here tonight to talk about some movies. How you doing, Amelia?
Good.
Good? How good? 4 M&Ms good?
Yep.
4 M&Ms and 2 vitamins good?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We had some good behavior tonight in the Dempsey household. Miss Amelia is growing up, and she's becoming a little leader and a very good...
I'm going to be in kindergarten when I turn 5.
That's correct. You're going to be in kindergarten when you turn 5. Are you excited about kindergarten?
Yay!
What do you want to do in kindergarten?
Work myself and go to nap. The big kids nap.
Work yourself and go to nap. That's pretty much adulthood without the nap.
That's what the big kids do.
That's what Daddy would want to do. I would love to have a nap. I'd love to work myself and then have a nap. You want to talk about movies?
Yay!
Let's talk about some movies. The first movie that we have up today, I just saw for the first time.
Rival.
Well, a little bit of mystery wouldn't...
The Grinch.
Let's just ignore that. It's just a promo. Forget that. The people can't even see that yet. I saw this movie for the first time last night and tonight, and this is your first time seeing this movie. And as you said, let me find a picture that's a little more suited to, oh wow, these really aren't that helpful. They're so small. The pictures are so small. Okay, well, we'll just zoom in a little bit on this thing.
It's big now.
Huh?
It's big now.
Oh, is it? Okay, great. The movie is An American Tail. Directed by Don Bluth. This is a Universal film, back when Universal actually made good animated movies instead of
2 computers.
It's just a different screen. Just don't worry about it. Anyway, this movie was made in 1986. See, now I got to click away from this and check on the year here. 1986. Yeah. Produced by Sullivan Bluth Studios and Amblin Entertainment. That's Steven Spielberg. But directed by Don Bluth, who also directed a few other delicious movies. I think one of them being Thumbelina. But these were the main competitors to the Disney animated films of right before the second golden age of animation. And we watched it tonight on Netflix. Amelia, what did you think of American Tail?
He fell off the boat and left his family from America.
So Fievel is a Ukrainian mouse, and his family are Jewish, and they live in Stoska, I think it's called. I forgot the name of the territory they're in, but basically it's like 1885. Like when this movie was made in 1986, and I think it's 1885 when the movie starts. So they go 100 years into the past, and it starts in the 1880s. And I had to read this on Wikipedia because my history knowledge is for SHIT. But the Cossacks like come and raid the village that they live in and set all their
computers doing that.
Don't worry about that. The Cossacks come and actually like raid their village and set it on fire. Remember that at the beginning of the movie? Where that their village gets attacked and the people set their house on fire and they have to run? Do you remember that? At the very beginning of the movie, that's what happens. That's like the whole inciting incident is they're already sort of talking about getting out of Russia because it sucks at the time. And, well, now too, kind of, but depending on, anyway, especially if you're Jewish, it's not a good place to be in the 1880s. And so there are Papa here, the patriarch mouse I was already talking about, wanting to go to America and wanting to live in America and how it'd be, good to live in America. So, so especially after their home gets burned down by these cats, they're like, yep, let's get out. So they kind of travel over to Hamburg, Germany, where they board a boat that's headed for New York, for Ellis Island. I think it's Ellis Island, New York anyway. And on the way, there's really rough seas, and Fievel can't sit his butt still, and he runs away, and he ends up getting washed away off the ship. Remember when Fievel almost drowns?
He was afraid of the water.
Yeah, he was really afraid. He was very scared, and it was scary. That sequence is actually really frightening. I thought I read that they cut that scene out, but I don't know if the version we watched is like a extra version or if they just cut more of the scene out. But I remember going I remember going like, oh, wow, this is kind of intense for kids. Like, I was worried that you wouldn't be able to handle it for a second, right?
I'm not afraid of the water.
I know you're not afraid of the water, but I just meant that, like, the sequence is terrifying because he's getting hit by waves over and over again, you know? So he ends up floating to New York as well. He lands in a bottle, thankfully, and he gets to New York. So he spends the rest of the movie trying to get back.
Yeah, and he's in the horn trying to hear the music, and he's in the horn.
Yeah, that's right. And so Fievel spends the rest of the movie trying to get back to his parents and for meeting, you know, a host of colorful characters, but he's immediately taken advantage of by this gangster rat who sells him into a sweatshop.
His parents will never be seen if he left him alone on America.
And his parents are looking for him also. Actually, his parents aren't really looking for him at the time because they've already accepted that like Fievel didn't make it. And his sister's the one who's insisting that he's still alive. So that's sort of the B story there with them. And then throughout this A story,
What's his sister's name?
Fievel, I don't remember. And Fievel sort of learns that the mice in the city are trying, like all the immigrant mice have realized that this myth they were told that there's no cats in America isn't true. That there are in fact.
But there are in America.
There are lots of cats in America, and they're mean. And so they're like, well, how are we gonna?
And they eat mouses.
They do, and they're not nice about it either.
Yeah, and and the mouses run away fast when they're smaller than the cat.
Mm-hmm. And they're trying to get rid of the cats basically throughout the story, and then through that, Fievel searches for his family.
Yeah, but that orange cat was really polite to them.
That's true. Fievel makes a friend, one of the cats.
And he knows where he is.
The point is, the movie is about a lost child trying to make it back with his family, but there's a lot of stuff to like here. I probably would have enjoyed this film more had I watched it as a kid. Had this been one of the formative movies of my childhood, it just wasn't. I'm almost 30 and I just watched this film for the first time. So there's a lot to like with the movie in its subtext, but also in the stuff that's on the surface. What I definitely noticed about this film from the beginning is it doesn't talk down to children. It's primarily for children, but there are themes in here that you're able to understand as an almost 5-year-old kid that a studio today would assume that you don't know how to understand. Right. The whole idea of them immigrating to America and wanting to live in America and
they lose their house because it's on fire. Now they're going to a new house.
Right. But to just simply the seriousness.
Their house.
I know, kiddo. The seriousness of their situation is it sugar coated? Beyond too much. Even though it's a kids movie, it's given its full weight, which is a lost thing in movies today. I feel like today. I feel like it doesn't seem today like in movies. There's nothing. There's no tension because everything feels like it's going to work out.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I like about it. I also like that there's a couple things in this movie that seem to be missing from modern America regarding immigration. I know this is a little bit of a deep theme for you, so I'm not going to touch on this too long, but I just want to point out that two things exist here that I don't see a lot of today, okay? One of them is a
tropical.
No, listen. One of the things I noticed in this movie is that the immigrants who come to America idolize America. They want to live in America, and America is this big symbol of hope for them. Especially at that time too, in the late 1800s, it was unabashedly a better place to live, and it's just interesting how immigrant attitude towards America, even when you're coming to live in America, there seems to still be this anti-American sentiment, even though you're coming here to live. And the other thing I think that is present in this movie is a sense of camaraderie and acceptance towards immigrants, period. That doesn't always exist today either. And it's interesting. It's interesting for this subject to sort of arise through the viewing of this movie. And again, this is a kid's movie in the 1800s where, one, we're not trying to have a big old forum on immigration, but two, it was a time in American history where I don't think there was as much cynicism surrounding immigration as there is now. So it's just really interesting to peek into that window for a minute. You go ahead.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
You know that Viva only left his parents when he got off the water, and then he was scared of it, and he thought it was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
And then he heard about his family and he heard about
Talking to the mic.
His family were his family thought he was alive, and then he came alive like Jesus did, and he died on the cross. I mean, Jesus did.
Mm-hmm. Fievel didn't though.
No, I know that.
Okay. Just
His
want to make that
Bible
clear.
is not Jesus.
No, Fievel's not Jesus. No, they did not nail Fievel to a cross and murder him. Nope.
But they know the moon came up, and then he didn't make it to his parents. Now he singed in the moonlight so he can get rid of that cat and find his family.
Okay, we don't want to tell everyone the whole movie now. We want people to go see it. You can see this movie on Netflix right now if you didn't grow up with it. If you've never seen it before, or you have kids and you're trying to find stuff for them to watch, this is fine for your kids to watch. I tend to sort of be pretty permissive when it comes to what kids can watch, because that wasn't necessarily the boundaries I was given as a kid. So I try to be like, okay, like
Then they don't.
what would I have liked to watch as a kid that I think is pretty much okay. This movie isn't kid gloved, but it's also not like super heavy borderline stuff for kids either. Well, that's An American Tail. Just wanted to point that movie out to people to recommend that for sure. The other movie we saw was The Haunted Mansion. This is from 2003, directed by Rob Minkoff, starring Eddie Murphy, Marsha Thomason, which is that? Is she?
Sarah.
Hold on a second. I recognize her.
You, Sarah.
Sarah. Yeah, is that her name in The Haunted Mansion?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I swear Lost. That's what I know her for, because she's Naomi in Lost. Okay, cool. All right, we can go back to The Haunted Mansion. This is a Disney movie, obviously based on the park ride. Eddie Murphy, Marsha Thomason, and a couple of kids, and Terrence Stamp. This is an interesting type of film because it's, like I said, it's based on a ride. So this is the same year that Pirates of the Caribbean Curse of the Black Pearl came out. So this was sort of Disney's other attempt at the time, not knowing how it was going to go, of let's make a film based on one of our theme park rides, and let's just see how it goes. And this did not turn into the hit franchise that Pirates of the Caribbean did, but this was a solid movie. I was explaining to my coworker, I was talking to Drew yesterday. Yeah, you know Drew, right? Here, sit up and talking to the mic so people can hear you. No, hold on. You don't have to talk if you don't have anything to say. Just when you speak, talking to this microphone. So I was talking to Drew about the movie, and I was explaining to him how, because this movie does not ask a lot of its viewers, I enjoyed this film more.
But they almost screw up.
Hold on. We'll get to that. I enjoyed this film more than this film to me makes more sense than Blade Runner 2049, which is...
Yeah, and he's the storm guy.
Yeah, which I would consider like an inflammatory statement, like, because Blade Runner 2049 is a better crafted movie than this. But what this is a movie that doesn't ask you to make a ton of logical leaps. It doesn't require that much. It just says, hey, we're going to make a movie, and we're going to have a mild character arc here for Eddie Murphy. And it's going to feature ghosts and stuff, and there's some production value, and it's just going to be a fun little family movie. And it delivers. The Haunted Mansion is another movie that's like, it's Halloween, you want to watch some stuff that your kids can see, go watch Haunted Mansion. Did we watch this on Netflix? I can't remember if this was on Netflix or on Freeform. I think this was on Freeform.
No, it's not on Netflix. It's just a Halloween movie.
Yeah, I think we watched this on Freeform because they're having a Halloween movie every day added to their list.
It's on Freeform.
Hey, kiddo, no one can hear you if you're not talking to the microphone.
But it's on Freeform, so...
That's what I'm saying.
We watch it
Okay.
One time.
Yeah. I like Haunted Mansion just fine. There's not much to say about it. There's nothing to discuss. There's no deep themes. It's just a fun little family movie where Eddie Murphy learns to not be such a workaholic and not to get himself into situations like being stuck in a haunted house. It's not scary. So don't worry about if your kids are going to be scared of this. They're not going to be scared of this. It's just a fun little movie. Good night, kiddo. This is where we say goodbye to Amelia. Thanks for coming on the show, Amelia.
Goodbye.
Wait, people can't see you. Come back up to me.
Goodbye.
Okay. Have a good night, okay, Amelia?
And I'll see you in another day if you have another movie.
We will have another movie. We'll watch more.
Are you pointing on the red button?
I'm not. I got my hand on it because I'm ready to mute it. All right. Good night, kiddo.
Good night. Thank you, people, and thanks for the show.
Okay. Anyway, moving on the show, I want to talk about some film news items. While we had them, as long as they're still relevant. I didn't look again today. Quick tidbit about the show. We were about to do the show last night. Dustin was available. Everything was going. And then stupid OBS locked up because I dared to update my my operating system on my Mac. And I guess it's just a little bit buggy for OBS. So didn't figure out all the kinks until it was way too late to start recording. So we scrapped it, and then Dustin's busy tonight. So that's why I roped my daughter in to be my guest, because I am a monster. Let's look at some film news and discuss it, or really just listen to me monologue about it. But here's some film news. Speaking of Disney, Disney animation, animated films, we got a story about Pixar here. Pixar's co-founder to retire from leading Disney animation efforts. This is an article on MarketWatch.com by Jeremy C. Owens. Walt Disney Company's top animation executive, Pixar co-founder Ed Catmull, will retire from the company at the end of the year. Disney announced Tuesday afternoon. Catmull will remain as an advisor through July, which will mark 40 years in the industry after he started out at Lucasfilm before co-founding Pixar with the help from Apple co-founder Steve Jobs. Catmull said, quote, "I have the mixed emotions that come with stepping away from a group of people I love, but also with the utmost pride and pleasure that we now have both at Pixar and Disney Animation, the most dedicated and imaginative leaders I have worked with." It's not going to replace Catmull because currently he oversees, let me see, what does he do? I believe he oversees Pixar and Walt Disney Animation Studios. So instead of replacing him with someone who's going to do that as well, they're just going to have a new, they're going to have two heads of, they're going to have a head of Pixar and a head of Walt Disney Studios report to Walt Disney Studios Walt Disney Animation and Pixar. Those two heads of those studios are going to report to Walt Disney Studios president Alan Bergman. There's a slight decline in the stocks when that happened, but since Ed Catmull's not really a household name, I don't think that it really impacted the stocks that much. So what does this mean for the movies? Probably not much. Especially if you're a casual moviegoer, you won't even feel this. For people who are a little bit more in the know or in tune or aware of the people behind the camera, Ed Catmull, co-founder, that's a big deal. And, whenever someone who was with the company from its inception, finally retires, no matter how well things are going and how much he might say, or people would say, literally nothing's going to change, the films aren't going to change, nothing, everything's fine. There is still a little bit, for me, a feeling of, yeah, but one of the people who made sure it became and stayed what it is, won't be there. And it's not like Ed Catmull was the only one at Pixar who was, let's just hang a few more seconds on Woody's face here to really get that emotion. That's the directors. But in terms of the brand, what Pixar should be and what Pixar should not be, Universal. I mean, that kind of stuff goes through the hands of lots of people, but that's still something that Ed Catmull would have, sort of been there as a check on. So I don't think much will change because cynicism in his absence is the assumption that whoever they hire to oversee Pixar and Walt Disney Animation aren't going to care about the product, but of course they will. They'll probably even be promoted from within. So this is one of those stories where I read it to you and then I say, I don't think much is going to change. It's news to me. I know who Ed Catmull is because I read the Steve Jobs biography, so I was aware of his name anyways. But I'm going to be reading soon, coming up, a book that he co-wrote called Creativity Inc. And it's about managing creativity. I assume meaning, which it was a recommendation from my mom. We were having a discussion about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, of course, and I was talking specifically about the ability to sort of create this elaborate cinematic universe and remain true to all the characters and their stories and the history of the comics, but also make it have broad appeal and marketable to a mass audience, and how that really does take people who understand both creativity and business, and how those types of people who are in touch with the both hemispheres of the brain like that are rare. Normally, they're not in one package. Steve Jobs was one of those people. Ed Catmull was one of those people. Is one of those people. There's a select few, I think, of people like that in the entertainment industry. It's usually some business tycoon who doesn't know story, doesn't care about story, or it's like a creative savant who refuses to listen to focus groups or whatever, it's market research. And she recommended the book. I don't know if she's read it. I can't remember if she's read it. I feel like she's written. People don't typically recommend stuff they haven't seen. I haven't read this book, but I recommend you read it anyways. Gee, thanks. So I'm pretty sure my mom has read the book. So I plan to read it anyways. So I'll read it now through the lens of Ed Catmull also leaving. But I'm very interested in that idea. And anyway, Ed Catmull stepping down from Pixar at the end of July of 2019. I guess he's probably going to oversee the last whatever. Is it Toy Story 4? Whatever they're working on, I'm supposing he's seeing that through. I don't know. Maybe he just wants it to be summer when he retires. I don't know. Who knows? Yeah. So that is news. I mean, I consider that film news. So good for Ed Catmull. 40 years in the industry. He's certainly earned himself a nice retirement, and he has helped give us really great films for many years. So my hat goes off to Ed Catmull and his contribution to animated films in the Walt Disney Corporation. So thank you, Ed. Speaking of Disney, and speaking earlier of franchises based on theme park rides, we're going to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean now. The story is on AV Club by William Hughes. It says Disney is looking into rebooting Pirates of the Caribbean. So this guy, I'll read you a little bit of this in like verbatim because I just want you to know William Hughes's. This is the other week I joked about writers that I thought were pretentious and stuff in some other article I read, doing writery things like flourishes on their words and unnecessarily descriptive. But William Hughes does a good job. So I'm going to read you the first paragraph. Well, it happened. Disney's insatiable hunger for live-action remakes of its classic properties has now reached the point where it's eating its own rattly dreadlock tail, as Deadline reports that the studio is looking into a live-action reboot of a property that was already filmed by actual flesh and blood people and also Keith Richards, Pirates of the Caribbean. Specifically, Disney is reportedly talking to Deadpool screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick about the possibility of massively revamping its billion-plus dollar Pirates franchise, which originally debuted in the distant, far-flung past of 2003. The original film has since spawned 4 sequels, enormous amounts of money, and more inadvisable Halloween performances from the funny guy in the office than you can shake a used Heath Ledger Joker costume at. He goes on to say, the real question is whether or not Reese and Wernick can make the Pirates characters more quippy, but whether this whole thing is being designed as a backdoor way to quietly give the franchise a much needed Johnny Depp-ectomy. He says Depp has been the sole stable figure for the series over the last 15 years, which is a pretty bizarre sentence to write, given how Johnny Depp has never been the most stable thing in anything else ever. That's not really fair. He's referring to the recent troubles with substances that Johnny Depp has had and erratic behavior and lots of actory behavior. 5 films is a lot for anybody to star in, he says, which might explain why Disney is hungry for reboots. Not that Captain Jack Sparrow has necessarily hung up his rum for good. Deadline notes that it's still early days for these particular plans, when it's always possible Reese and Wernick's script will have a place for the franchise's swaggering cartoon mascot to return. I'll tell you this much. There is no Pirates of the Caribbean films without Captain Jack Sparrow. I'm really against keeping things going just to keep them going. Dustin and I complain weekly about The Walking Dead, a show that neither of us watch anymore, but we're constantly critical, like the fact that they want to keep it going. And they're about to kill Rick. Andrew Lincoln is leaving the show, and they not only did they say we're not ending it on this season, not only did they not say we're going to wrap it up, probably we're going to give it 2 more seasons after this one, and then it is done. They're saying we have no plans to end the series. So your main character is about to exit the show after 10 years or something, and you're still like, yeah, we're probably not going to end the show. Why don't you just come out and say, we want to make money? And same here, why doesn't Disney just come out and say, look, these movies make a shitload of money, and that's kind of why we're here. And this frustrates me because that's clear to everybody. These films are being made for money. Yeah, they're here to entertain kids and blah, blah, blah. But like when I watched these last 2 Pirates films, I saw nothing but just a sloppy film that weakly hit all the bright points of the past films. Like, let's make sure we get Corky Jack. It's just a bullet point script. The first film is great. Not just good. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl is a great film. It's almost perfect. Like there's really nothing. I can't even find a single flaw with it. And the subsequent films just fell off. So, when I come across this story, because I was telling Dustin, I think they need to do one more and just try to make it good, but they need to end Captain Jack's story. Give him an actual death. Have him be abducted by aliens. I don't care. Just give him a conclusion and end the series, end the franchise. And then just make, a similarly, make some other 70s, 1880, whatever the hell time period it is. Just start a new franchise that's similar to it in production so that people can get their fix of a period action adventure film. So instead of doing that, Disney said, yeah, but people know what Pirates of the Caribbean is, so we want to keep doing that. But we're not going to, this guy's talking about taking Johnny Depp out of the films. And I'm telling you, without that character, there are no films. One of the reasons on Stranger Tides was so bad was, believe it or not, because Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley weren't in it. And not only were they absent from the film, they just brought in other actors who essentially held that role as the young lovers. Like, nothing screams we needed this story dynamic, but those actors didn't want to come back. It just makes you look stupid. If you're going to have the two of them exit the film, then just don't have that storyline in there. Just have it be about the founding. They could have, that movie had a lot more, could have used a lot more living space to give to Jack Sparrow and Hector Barbosa and Edward Teach and Penelope Cruz, I guess. But rebooting these is not the answer to better films. Even a competently made film, to me, it's still always going to have the stink of, why is this still here? Like, even if we get a great trilogy from a new crop of Pirates of the Caribbean 7, 8, and 9, you know, and they happen to be like, you know, pretty good films, like all 4.5-star movies, it's still like, okay, great. This isn't Pirates of the Caribbean, though. Because then you really have none of the original cast in there. At that point, it's no longer the franchise. And they could make 20 films, but if they all had Captain Jack Sparrow, that is still the franchise. It's still legitimate. But you make even an original trilogy, a 4th film, no Johnny Depp, it's not Pirates of the Caribbean anymore. That's how I see it. This is a bad move. It's stupid. It's not going to make for better movies. And it might not even, and because it's not going to make for better movies and you can't market Jack Sparrow, I don't think you get as many people sitting in seats. So I hope this doesn't, I hope this doesn't happen. I hope they just say, I'd rather them cough up lots of money and get Johnny Depp in for 3 more films or 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'd rather them do that than reboot it. I just think rebooting it, it's dumb. It makes people cynical about movies, and it really gives fuel to the fire, because God, I can't stand it sometimes when, like, film lovers, not people who like movies, but film lovers, people who would never be caught dead watching a commercial film, which lots of good commercial films, but people who would never be caught dead watching broad appeal films, it gives them more fuel to go, blah, 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 Disney, soulless, money-sucking corporation, blah, 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 the idiocy of the masses, blah, blah, blah. I really hate it when people say that. Like, that Disney's pumping out films that are just meant to please the masses, to make money. Of course, that's their purpose, is to make a profit. They are a company. The film is their product. However, it makes me mad when stuff like this happens, because it's I'm not just mad that it's happening, but I'm mad now that I have less ammunition to debate somebody who says those things. Because I'm typically the one who goes, yeah, but there's also art being created even in the midst of it being a product to sell for profit, which again is the point of a business. So I just don't like having those arguments. It's harder to have them when Disney does stuff like this, and it just rips the rug out from under me. Because now I can less and less can I claim their artistic integrity. Because how can you have artistic integrity when you're willing to reboot a franchise without its main character, or reboot it at all, like immediately? We all expected it out of Sony when it happened, when they just rebooted Spider-Man and then rebooted it again. We were all like, yeah, well, Sony does that. They suck. They're stupid. They can't help themselves. I expected better from Disney. I did. I expected better from Disney. So we'll see what happens with that. A quick note about film news. Dustin, John, and I have decided that we're going to review Avengers 4, obviously, next summer. Or, this coming summer, 2019. And, but we want to know as little as possible about Avengers 4 going into it. Scanning for news just now, I already saw like 2 or 3 things that are just rumors, hearsay, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even read the articles. but they contain stuff that it's heavily like implied what would happen after Avengers 4 and who was going to be around and who's not. And there's stuff that we know already with contract, either actors, or an actor or whoever who has said it's been a pleasure working on these films, or people who we know are ending their contracts or whatnot, who I won't name here in case you don't know what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it for you. We might not be doing film news. We decided that the go time was when the first Avengers 4 trailer hits, which is probably going to be sometime in November. We decided the first trailer that gets released, that's the go button, where none of us are allowed to watch any trailers, read any news about the film or anything. And we're going to have a contest to see who knows the least about the film and about the plot by the time we watch the movie. And I encourage everyone to do the same, because it's sad that we can't even get to a film's release without potentially being spoiled about its plot by Facebook, social media in general, even Google, YouTube, and toys, even the toys that spoiled the Hulk reveal, or what would have been the Hulk reveal, and all that stuff. So just a quick note about film news in the coming months, that we might not be doing any of it in an effort to avoid spoiling ourselves unintentionally on Avengers 4. I do want to talk about one more movie. Star is Born is directed, co-written by, produced by, and starring Bradley Cooper, also starring Lady Gaga, Sam Elliott, Andrew Dice Clay, Dave Chappelle, and a few other people. I actually saw this film in a theater. I went to the Crescent Theater and I had a voucher. And on Sunday night, my wife was kind enough to watch our kids while I went to go see this film. Because I just was riveted by that trailer that I saw during the Quick Pick. And I had to go see what all the hubbub was about. The reviews were good. It's got a 8.3 out of 10 on IMDb. What does this have on Rotten Tomatoes? I want to know. Where are you? 90%. Yeah. What does Rotten Tomatoes say? I'm just curious the consensus here. What the actual critic consensus says: with appealing leads, deft direction, and affecting love story, A Star is Born is a remake done right, and a reminder that some stories can be just as effective in the retelling. Yeah, I went and read through like the plot details of the 3 previous Star is Born iterations. This is the 4th version of this movie, 3rd remake. And the plots are obviously the core story is adhered to. So this movie stars Bradley Cooper as Jackson Maine, who is an established singer-songwriter. I'm going to go ahead and say in the vein of Lucas Nelson, because Lucas Nelson was like, helped them write the songs, was kind of the musical consultant on the movie, Willie Nelson's son. But, imagine Bradley Cooper as a singer. What kind would he be? Wouldn't be a country singer. He'd be sort of like rock, folksy kind of guy, flannel shirt kind of wearing, but not cowboy hat wearing kind of singer. He's from Arizona. And at this point in his career, he is severe. You know the story. I'm sure you know the story if you know the film I'm talking about. He's a fierce alcoholic, and it's starting to really affect him, and it's been affecting his relationships with people for years. It's been affecting his career for years. And he meets Allie, played by Lady Gaga. And Allie is working as a waitress at the time. She has previously tried to break into the music industry over and over again, but is discriminated against based on her, the perception of her looks. Her, nose is too big. You don't look the part of the singer. You're talented, but we can't really market you. Kind of a thing, which you have to wonder had to have been true to life sort of things that Lady Gaga had to have gone through herself. And Jackson basically discovers her. He hears her sing one night in a bar, and he kind of spends the evening getting to know her, and sort of sweeps her up and gets her to one of his concerts and brings her on stage to sing with him. And they do that a few times, and they get romantic with each other. They start dating, they fall in love, and eventually she gets an agent. Her image, and then she has to create an image with these people, and his alcoholism progresses, and as her her career sort of starts to blossom as his continues to sort of be on the back end, and they have some personal issues, and stuff happens. The movie ends. I don't want to really spoil it. It's one of those where I don't want to kind of tell you where it's going, because I want you to go into the movie invested in their relationship without knowing exactly where it's going. Because that was sort of spoiled for me, not fully, but in a way that to where I was like, oh, like I sort of knew what to expect already. This is a good movie. This is Bradley Cooper's first film he directed. These, I think, in terms of like the atmosphere of the world they build, the world that these characters live in, it was very well established and very well realized. Something like this, where he's playing music at a festival, look at all those people. What they did was they went to like Bonnaroo and Coachella and like big music festivals where there's already tens of thousands of people. And, they go up on stage and they would just sort of tell everybody like, hey, we're filming the movie, thanks for listening or something. And Bradley Cooper would get up there, and Lady Gaga would get up there, and they would sing their songs and be filmed while doing it. So they just sort of went up before Willie Nelson at a bunch of these concerts. And so the crowds that they're being shot while he's singing, this is real. He's performing in front of real people. This is a real take, and that's really him singing. And I really appreciate and kind of respect that guerrilla filmmaking angle to this movie. What else do I want to mention? The two of them, Cooper and Gaga, have really, really, really good chemistry. I have not seen her act before. I've never seen the American Horror Story season that she's in. But I came in already sort of automatically liking her character, because I like Lady Gaga. And of course, Cooper I love too. So you come in, at least I came in with this inherent like trust of these two characters. But even if you didn't, even if you came in neutral, you really quickly buy into their relationship and their good intentions of each other. Cooper, I sort of was waiting for, and there are times where he says he doesn't say the right things to her and everything. And again, I don't want to get into their actual, into the fine details of the story beats, but he's not always nice. But most of the time his character is just genuinely well-meaning. So it took me a while to sort of, because I'm so cynical now. I kept waiting for him to go, okay, what's his ulterior motive? What's his ulterior motive? He doesn't have one. He thinks Allie can sing, and he thinks that she ought to be a star because she has the gift. As he says, you have something to say, and you have a way to say it that makes people want to hear it. And as he also tells her at some point in the movie, he says, and trust me, they're not going to be listening forever. So you need to take your moment and have it, because one day it'll be gone, kind of like it is for me. And all you'll have is, how good you were at it, or something like that, to paraphrase. So he sees this in Allie, and it sort of rejuvenates in him the spirit of being new in the business again. And so they're really good for each other for a while. His alcoholism progresses, like I said, and she, doesn't fall prey to it or anything, but she's fiercely loyal to him throughout the movie, which I really liked. And it's heartbreaking after a while. The movie, I guess what I'm going to get the movie in terms of stars. I don't know how else to describe this. I wanted to talk about this, like bounce this off of somebody else who's seen it, but, it's a pretty simplistic plot. It's really cool to see it in a contemporary setting, to see it, in 2018 music industry as it is now. commenting on the commercialization of music, the distortion of, the ever-present art versus commerce dilemma that I was talking about earlier. How do you make a product that has a unique artistic voice and execution, but you make it marketable to a general audience? What's the balance? At what point are you too musically pure to have broad appeal? And at what point are you trying too hard to appeal to everybody that you're not even doing your own art anymore? Those themes are explored. There's body image themes that are kind of explored. Obviously, there's guilt and resentment and pain explored in here too. And sort of not self-sabotage, but self-pity in here. There's a lot of things explored in this movie. In terms of star rating, I probably give this I don't want to give it below a 4. I sort of want to give it a 3.5, but I'll give it a 4 stars. This is a movie that people should see. It's, again, the cinematography is good. Acting is great. The music, the soundtrack, all that stuff is fantastic. And the story is good and logical. And the themes they're trying to express, are carried out, in a pretty realistic manner. It's just not a simple story. What would I change? What did I find fault with? I guess, I don't know. At the time, like a day after I saw it, I started to pick it apart, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe blah blah. There was a lot of articles that sort of criticized how Lady Gaga, or her character, how Allie deals with Jackson's disease, his alcoholism, and how there are times where she was like, she didn't handle it correctly, like how she should have, like there should have been an early point in the film where she left him or something, as a wake-up call. It's like, well, even if it wasn't the right thing to do, it's within the character. I mean, she loves him. And another thing that I sort of thought they were going to do in the movie was have her sort of value the music over him. And she doesn't. She very appropriately takes it seriously as her work and doesn't blow it off. But she doesn't let it get in her. She never lets it ruin who she is or where she came from. So the characters are pretty simplistic and straightforward in that sense. So, I think I was expecting to be on more of an emotional ride through this thing, and I just wasn't. Although, I remember the first time she goes up on stage to sing, that was an emotional moment. Me and I'm sure others in the theater kind of like were tearing up. Like, we were like, oh, good for her, good for her getting up there and she's killing it. And what a big moment. And then at the end, the last song that gets sung, that's the tearjerker. I don't know. I did not feel bad for giving it a 4, but I don't know what to tell you. That it's a 4. It's a 4. Like it's. I guess just because it doesn't mean much to me personally. And I'd read 1 or 2 reviews that sort of. I guess I allowed these reviews to let me think that this film would mean something to me personally. And while I've gone through some of the issues that are expressed in this film, I guess I just expected this movie to be more of the powerhouse for those issues than it ended up being. And I don't blame it for that, but a 5 is for films that can do that. Andrew, again, Lady Gaga is great. Andrew Dice Clay is great. Dave Chappelle, not in the movie that much, but he's great. Just it is for the most part a feel-good movie. It is. Like, you watch out now, but it is. And Cooper's just, I can't say good enough things about Bradley Cooper. That guy, the two of them are just fantastic in this. I mean, the role, the character is not a lot like Lady Gaga, at least according to her. but it's, obviously it's in her wheelhouse as an artist. So it's not like a super like a transformative role for her. It's just, she's a singer. And Lady Gaga in the film succeeds a lot, pretty heavily on the talent of Lady Gaga as a singer. She's just incredible at what she does. And so a lot of the film to me is just like enjoying listening to her sing. But she's a great singer. And so is Bradley Cooper. And I just really respect that he pulled this film off. And especially for it being his first venture. This is certainly in his future. He's a great actor. I want to see him keep doing more and more challenging roles. But I want to see him keep directing films. I do. Because he was great. He was great here. And the two of them are great. This was definitely going to get, obviously there's already Oscar buzz. I don't know if the two of them will win. I know this is pretty heavily favorited to win because we know how the Oscars work. Sometimes the Oscars is just, what would be the fun thing that could win? Like if what could we pick to win that would be like, oh yes, it's just heavily like, it's just what would people like to see win? It's not really about the quality of the films, I find. And a mixture of the films themselves not being accessible to watch, not being, something wide audiences want to see. But I think this film has enough commercial appeal and artistic bona fides to win some Oscars. Certainly the two of them are going to get nominated for acting. It's going to get a lot of the songs are going to get nominated. They're going to win for best song. He'll get nominated for best director. Probably cinematography in their production design. I mean, this is going to be an awards contender for sure. Go see it. I saw it at the Crescent. I really enjoyed myself, although it's not playing there anymore. It's finished. It's around the Crescent Theater, but you can still go see it at regular old theaters. Star is Born. That's going to be it for this episode. We're not going to do any of the box office analysis because I've talked long enough tonight, and I want to get this episode up and out because it's Thursday and it's not Wednesday, and I want to get just all this stuff done. I got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. My kids are out of school tomorrow, and so I need to keep my energy up to be able to be dad tomorrow all day, every day. Anyways, thanks for watching, people. Thanks for listening. Check us out on iTunes, Facebook Live. Next week, the week after that episode. Yeah. Well, Wednesday's Halloween, so we probably won't be recording on Wednesday. So if we record on Thursday, it will be live. Partially. Maybe. We might take next week off. I haven't decided yet. Yeah. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thanks for listening. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, Facebook, HooperCast. Thank you. And eggs and bank you. See you later. Good night, buddy.